Okay, so we are officially recording, which is always the scariest part. Did I press record? So the first thing that I want to do is just welcome you to this bonus class. And to first of all, thank you so much for being part of the copy chat. It was so thrilling to have you all with such commitment, your engagement. It's been, overwhelming to receive the feedback around so much of what, every one of you loved and your takeaways. And we actually had Arian, one of our speakers, is joining us here tonight, which I absolutely love. So one of our experts is here with us too. So it's just an incredible energy that I definitely felt when I did Copy Chat 1.0, and it's only grown. And that is only thanks to, a huge part to the community that you guys bring to the table. So I appreciate so much your commitment and being part of it. So when I kind of sent out the email asking for, feedback and what you wanted to learn about, it was like overwhelming that a lot of you wanted to learn about emails, wanted to know more about emails. So I wanted to be able to dive into that with you, as it's one of my absolute favorite things to talk about and something I work on a ton with my clients. So I have a lot of private clients and coaches and creatives that hire me to write their copy for their launch emails, that come on and write nurture sequences, welcome sequences. So emails is something I'm doing all day, every day, and not just writing the emails to write them, but we're thinking always, what you've learned from the copy chat is from this conversion mindset, is how do we get the emails, how do we get the copy to convert, to bring us what that goal is that we have in mind, whether it's filling a group program, filling our one-to-one client roster, getting people to respond to the email, getting people to go read the blog, come on over to our Facebook Live, or whatever it is. So I wanted to kind of give you the 3 steps to turn your boring emails into personality-filled selling machines. So that's where we're going to start tonight. And I'm going to give you some of those specific tips. And then there'll also be time for questions. And know that during that time for questions, you are totally, if there's something else you have a question about, maybe it's not about emails, you totally can ask me about that. This is what I'm here for. I'm here for you. So, and whatever you have right now with you, a notebook, your phone, however you're taking notes, I encourage you to grab that and kind of start jotting down as you go. So if something comes to you, you can kind of pop it in the chat, or you can pop it on where you're taking notes so you remember to ask. And then again, just as I said, just making sure that if you're not muted, to mute yourself, just so that there's no kind of background noise if you have to come in and out or something. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about, and it's the reason that I've asked you to kind of bring your, think about your numbers tonight for yourself, is that it doesn't really matter if you have a big list or a small list. It's the amount of engagement that you're getting. So what I mean by that is that you could have somebody who has a 10,000 person list. But if people aren't reading your emails or they're not engaged, then it's not actually serving you. So I think for a long time, people always felt like for email that it's kind of, quantity over quality. And it's actually not true at all. It's a total quality over quantity game. So I've seen people do excellent with super small lists. And why? Is because that they've been able to really communicate with with their list on this one-to-one level by really calling out, and which we'll talk about in a minute, how they do that. But it's all on creating a relationship with your list. So right away, I want you to not think about your numbers, but in terms of how many people you have on your list, but think about are people engaging with you? Are they responding? Are they sending you, are they saying, oh my gosh, I love this email so much? Are they opening the email? So across kind of industry standards, we say that 20% is what you want to aim for. That 20% is a great number. Obviously, if you have a smaller list, we would want that number to be even higher. So it's how can you double that? How could you even get that 5% higher? Because if you get it 5% higher, you can engage, even if it's just think one or another person or two or handful of people, but one of those handfuls of people could become a potential client. So it's always a good idea to think about, how could I increase my conversion here? How can I get my open rate just a little bit higher? How can I get my click-through rate just a little bit higher so that I impact more people. And that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. But the reason I wanted you to bring your numbers is to think about your open rate versus like about how many people you have on your list, which you can share with me in a little bit if you'd like. And we can kind of talk about it after you hear some of these tips and see there might be an aha moment for you that's like, oh, I need to do this, or I need to do this, or something else that might help. But keep those numbers in mind as you're kind of sitting here and taking notes and thinking about it tonight. So, and just like I said, remember that 2 to 5% can be a game changer for your email. So it doesn't have to be huge. Like, yes, there could be something you do that like doubles the engagement, like bravo, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a small percentage that can really make a big difference. So before I dive into the kind of specific tips, I just want to talk for a second about a lot of people feel like, oh, emails are dead. You know, like, oh, I'm on social media. I think that's where it is, or I don't have an email list. And what I encourage you to do is no matter how small or how big or wherever you're at this moment, to start to readjust a little bit your mindset around emails. So I'm just going to read you a couple of statistics, a couple of things to just kind of get your mind thinking about it in a different way, in an excited way, actually, because I am very jazzed by email, like very jazzed by it. So for example, in 2018, which was already almost, I can't believe it will almost be 2020, like in less than 6 months. But back in 2018, if we all remember that last year, email marketing drove more conversions than any other marketing channel. And that includes search and social, which means that it drove more conversions than through Google or YouTube or Pinterest or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter alike. That email still in that way kind of reigns queen in that sense. So here's some other like data just to think about. So for every marketing, like every email you spend, let's say, for every dollar, let's say you spend on like sending something through an email, or whatever it costs you kind of to do it. So for every, like the ROI, it has a 44, I always say this wrong, but 4,400%. So it means that like for every dollar you spend, you're going to get like $44 back. Like you can't, the numbers are like really hard to deny. And then if you have even less, let's say you only have 2,000 people on your list, let's say you have 500 people on your list, let's say you have 100. When you're below a certain number, you don't even have to pay for that list on like ConvertKit or other platforms. Like it's essentially like free for you to have this place to be able to have this kind of major ROI. So again, this is why I want you to think about not the quantity, but the quality. Everything that I say tonight, I want you to go back to the quality of the list, of how you can interact with them in a way that's bringing quality. So just think about that as well. And so the biggest thing about email, the absolute biggest thing, is that you own it, that it's yours, that if, all these tech glitches that have been going on lately made me think about it, is that, when Facebook goes down or Instagram goes down, I always think to myself, if those things went away, would I still be able to, create my business? Yes, with my email list, 100%. Now, I'm not one of those people that's like, doomsday, oh, you don't need the social at all. No, I actually think it's a beautiful marriage. And I think that that's where email can really be beneficial. If you have a group like I have, having your email list and your group kind of work together in this marriage can be amazing. Or if you have your Instagram stories, or that's where your other kind of social platform that you're really engaged, it can work hand in hand with your emails together. So it's like this beautiful marriage, but I always just like to go back to this idea that your email list is yours. Those readers, that's your community. You own it. That is your place. It can't really be taken away from you in that sense. So here are just some more numbers to understand. So 57% of email subscribers spend around 10 to 60 minutes browsing emails during the week. And when compared to social, 90% of email gets delivered to the intended recipient's inbox, whereas only 2% of your Facebook fans see your post in their newsfeed. So think about that for a second. 90% of emails get delivered, where only 2% might see the post. Like you have a 2% chance of like them seeing the post. And you have a 6%, those people are 6 times more likely to get a click through from an email campaign than you are from like, let's say a tweet or something like that. So, and then when it comes to buying, 4% of visitors will buy from an email, as opposed to about 2.5% of visitors from search engines and less than 1% from social media. So that's kind of like my Beekman's world for any of my 90s folks around here, like my Beekman's world, like sciencey way of just hitting home that email is worth your time. It's worth your time. So that's just from the sciencey kind of standpoint. But now we can really get into kind of the fun stuff, now that I kind of got your ears perked around it a little bit, is that emails are my favorite place to create your happy accidents, I call it. If we all remember like Bob Ross, the painter, we used to talk about like creating the happy accidents. Email is your place to do that because, you know, it doesn't, if something doesn't work or you don't get a response, you can send something else. If you get an overwhelming response, you get to kind of look at it and analyze it and see why. It's really your place to start experimenting and figuring out like what's your personality. It's your way to understand your ideal client, connect with them, see what they respond to. And you have real-time numbers to know what's working, right? As we just talked about, your open rates, your click-throughs, your engagement, your sales. You have a real-time way of knowing, not just from looking at the responses, but actually going behind the scenes and seeing the data broken down into 20%, 30% to really see what's resonating. And I love to, like, when a client first hires me, one of the first things I ask them for is their their top 10 most opened emails of like the quarter or of the year. And they might send it to me, or they might have their assistant send it to me, or their VA or something, because I want to see it. I want to know, what's this audience been resonating with? What kind of subject lines have they been resonating with? What kind of content do they really go for? So when you already are starting to do those things before you start selling, if you can start to get into a habit of emailing your list, those numbers are going to be your friend, because you're really going to know, as opposed to what happens is when people just go, well, I'm going to go email my list when I'm selling. And they're like, this isn't working. Why is that? It's not just because when people say, oh, you haven't been emailing them, and then you try to sell it to them. It's also from like these statistics. You don't really know what kind of stuff they like, because you haven't had the opportunity to kind of email them and get inside their mind and see what they were responding to. So, okay. So now that we know, like, okay, this is the place to create your happy accidents, you should do it. How do you get started kind of doing it? And this is where I like to talk about like knowing your style. Like, what is your email style? So in CopyChat 1.0, a designer that I love a lot, a web designer named Michelle Martello, was one of our guest speakers. And Michelle talked about how when she does her website design, she has people go into their closet and look at the colors that they wear. She asked them to look at the colors, like, oh, do you wear mostly red? Do you find that you're a print person? Because this is how she helps them come up with like their brand colors. So I thought this was so interesting that she said this, because this is something that I do for all my clients and all my students. I ask them to create a word closet. So this is going into your own life and looking at the words and phrases that you use when you communicate with people. Like, what is your word closet? What are things that, you say all the time? So how do you do this? You can look at emails you've sent to like loved ones, friends, like you can look at your phone and see like texts that you've sent. You can look back if you do have emails that you've already written to. Let's say you already are out there writing to your list. You can look at your social media posts, and then you want to actually take a Google Doc or a notebook, whatever, and make a list of your most used phrases. And you're just going to begin to incorporate those into your emails. And along with the words and phrases, you're going to start to create like your strong point of view. So for example, I say jazzed all the time. You probably heard me say it like 3 times tonight. And I'm seeing Talita's face. It's actually funny because I didn't have it in my own word closet until it was like one night on a live or something, or in a post, Talita, like you mentioned, you were like, yeah, I'm excited about this. Or in the words of Marisa, I'm jazzed. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I see this all the time. I really do. So I quickly added it to my word closet. And I remember just this thing I was doing the other day. I was like, oh, I want to say jazz. That's how I would say it. So it's when you start to see these, like, where you feel like, oh God, you're saying exciting or amazing or what everyone else might say. What's your like word? What's in your word closet that can replace this? So for example, I just did launch emails for my client, you guys heard her, for Gemma Bonham Carter, who was on Copycat 2.0. So her word closet was so much fun. So when we got done doing a series of these launch emails for her, I went to look at the sign-offs because I was looking at the sign-off and I was like, oh, the sign-off's kind of generic. Because I kind of would skip it, right? I would just kind of sign off and I knew I'd go back and look. And I'm like, gosh, we have such great content and I'm feeling the sign-off is like generic. So I went back in her word closet and I saw how she always says, like, she loves to say, like, I'm pumped or I'm whatever. Like, I'm pumped. That was her thing. So I went back through all of it. And instead of saying, like, I'm so excited to have you join Passive Project, I just switched it to, like, I'm so pumped to, see you on the inside. And it just gave another, like, bump up of, like, Gemma's personality and what they could expect that was different from somebody else they might read. So this is why it's so important to actually write down your word closet, because, like, let me tell you, you'll think that you'll remember it, but you won't. Because, like, till Talita told me that I said jazzed all the time, I was like, oh yeah, I got to go add that to my word closet. So when you have kind of your words written down, the next thing you kind of want to do is really establish, like, what's your kind of specific point of view on certain things, like in your industry. My friend Christine Bluebob describes this as, like, you have your hit list and, like, the shit list. So it's like, what are the things that are going on in your industry or your niche that, like, you agree with? And what's the thing that you want to call bullshit on? Right? So these are the ways that you can start to kind of, like, create your topics or create, like, your specific point of view on something. An example of this is, maybe you guys remember when you joined for Copycat 2.0, you received an email from me where I talked about, where I said, hey, tell me if this was you when July started in Q3, and everybody's like, are you ready to crush your Q3 goals? Only 6 more months until 2020. Where are you slacking in your business? Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, wrote this email where I was like, ugh, like, oh my God, enough is enough. Like, are you sick of someone telling you that you got 6 more months to crush your goals, bro? And then I wrote my own take on it. And my inbox was so flooded that I emailed my assistant and I said, like, wait a second, that email wasn't supposed to go out to new people for Copycat. I didn't want to bombard them. They're already getting these other emails. But it was crazy. The response, it resonated so well with people who were like, Jesus, stop telling me, like, I have to, like, work harder or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I called shit list where all of my peers were right. It was like they were waiting with bated breath to be like, it's July 1st. Are you ready to, for your Q3 business goals? It was like everywhere I looked that day. And I just was like, oh my gosh. So that was an example of where I was like, I'm going to call this out. And that was like my shit list. So it's like, where in your niche or your industry or where you want to serve people, do you want to help them, like, kind of call it out? Or do you want to kind of not jump on the bandwagon, but there's stuff that you agree with and you want to create your own spin to it, right? That you want to create your own spin on. So another example of this is I had a woman book a call with me last year. We did kind of a VIP day around her welcome sequence. And she was feeling like her welcome sequence was kind of like, blah. So she is a health coach who works with people after they've had cancer, like after they've been ill and have to, like, overcoming, mostly cancer, that they've been sick. And maybe they're trying to get back to, like, a healthy weight and all these kinds of things. And she herself is a cancer survivor. So I was just feeling like her copy was like, yeah, I was into it, but there was something missing. And I didn't know what it was. So she hops on the call and she starts kind of telling me about her own journey. And she kind of shares with me that, a big part of it for her was her faith, her Christian faith. And I said to her, well, how come there isn't any of that in this copy? And she says, well, I'm nervous that if I say that, then, people, and I was like, hold on a second. Her name was Kelly. I said, but that's your unique point of view. You're not saying that, like, Jesus alone is how you, like, went in, to remission and, like, got your ideal weight back and, like, started being healthy. You're saying that there's the physical things that you can do, like your relationship with your doctor. There's the emotional stuff, which is, like, get your head in the game, and, like, understand that, like, you can get through this and all that, and leaning on your support, your husband, your family. But that there's this other component that is a spiritual component, is what you're saying. And it's important to tap into that when faced with adversity. I was like, so why would you be leaving that out of that's what makes you different from another like a coach or somebody that might be doing this. So I send her off on her way, and she's killing it. She's really, really killing the game. She like filled up a group program. She started another program because all of a sudden she was no longer afraid to have that strong point of view. And so why people think email is dead is because we're bombarded in a sea of like people just playing it safe, just like hanging out and being like, you know, are you feeling sad today? You know what I mean? Like just playing it safe. So we always talk about, or you've heard me talk about before, and maybe some of the other experts as well, about this whole goldfish theory, right? That we have a shorter attention span than goldfish. So goldfish have 9 seconds, and we have 8 seconds. And on mobile, it's on your phone where everybody's really doing everything these days, that number gets slashed to 4 seconds, which means you have 4 seconds to, you know, grab someone's attention. Now, a lot of times there's people in like the online world who are like getting sick of hearing this, and they're like, oh, I'm sick of people saying this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, here's an example of my shit list. I'm like, wait, why? I'm not saying it to scare you. I'm saying it, what an amazing opportunity you have to be one of the people to hold that attention. So in order to hold that attention, you have to be bold. You have to have a strong point of view. You have to have a specific point of view. So don't let it scare you. Let it motivate you. Let it excite you. So when you go back and you read the first line of an email, go, is this exciting enough? Would I want to keep reading this? Does this line entice me to read the next line? Is it surprising? Does it leaving a place for curiosity? Has it have like a bold statement or statistic or question that would make me want to read the next line, which we're going to dive into it in a second, a little bit more in a second. But that's where that strong point of view comes in. And this is why people get frustrated with email, because 9.9 out of 10 times I see someone's, you know, emails and they're playing it safe. Even for Kelly, when she came to me, it was like she was doing all these other things really, really well. But there was this one thing that she was really holding back on. And that was really like, you know, the secret sauce, as they say, you know, the hot sauce of the thing that was really her kind of bag of tricks. And now she could really show up fully presently, like as herself. You know, we heard Lisa Cherney talk about this in day one of Copy Chat 2.0. What would you say, or who would you show up at in your business if you weren't worried about being normal, proper, or polite? So this is exactly how I like to approach all emails. Who would you be if you didn't have to worry about being normal, proper, or polite in this email? So that's kind of like that first assignment, is to make a list of your most used words or phrases, get that word closet out and going, and then also create those kinds of that point of view for yourself. What's 1 or 2 areas that you kind of want to call shit lists on? Or what's an area that, like a topic in your niche you want to talk about that you want to add your own spin to? So remember that like this is what really gets people to like read and stay engaged. And then the other part of this is also remembering that like personalized emails, they'll improve your click-through rates by like 14. Oh, wait, I wrote it down. Hold on, let me make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Yeah, by 14%. And they'll increase your conversions by 10%. So what do I mean by personalized? Well, you heard Holly talk about this in her editing when we talked about in her editing tips. Is always referring to your readers as you. We never want to say you all or you guys, or this is being sent to my list of 2,000 people. Like that email always turns me off, because I'm like, now you've taken me out of the relationship that's supposed to be between me and you. So always go through your emails like Holly was talking about and look through and go, is this personalized? Am I using you? And always go, if you see you all or you see we, just go back and cut it out and figure out how can that phrase make sure that it's felt personalized and that it's speaking to one person. Just while we're talking about kind of, you know, your words and phrases, here's just some other like mistakes that I see in emails a lot that I think, again, Holly and I touched on this, but I think it's important to talk about this a little bit as well, is making sure that you don't have huge blocks of text. This is really huge. So a lot of times we come from like our high school background. I'm just taking a sip of water. Where we have that traditional like four sentence structure. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm just gonna look around for the show of hands for people who, yeah, there's like this, that whole, from school where we were like, you have to have the 4 sentences, and it's like, moreover, finally, firstly, secondly, all that gets thrown out here. Okay, it's because when people open up, again, remember, if people are seeing stuff on their phones, and they're just going to open the phone where everything kind of gets crunched, right? And they're just going to see a block of text. Like, I need a nap. I'm already stressed out. Like, there's no way I'm going to read it. Like, you could be Shakespeare. There is no way I'm reading it, right? So I always like to talk about this as an example, which the New Yorker probably doesn't want my advice, but I'm going to give it to them anyways. So I subscribed to the New Yorker for a long time. I loved it. But I started to notice I was always stressed out when I was reading it because the articles are all long. There's no sub headlines. When you're reading a newspaper and an article, there's like sub headlines throughout, or headlines, or they bring out certain things, or like, which I'll talk about in a minute, like Cosmo or like Women's Health does, like some of the more women's kind of interest magazines. But the New Yorker is just this small font, and it's just like long paragraph after long paragraph. And I'm like looking, and there's no marker that I'm like, that I've made it with the way through. When you're reading a book, you look to go, you're about to fall asleep, but you're like, well, let me see how many pages I have left. All right, 3 more pages. I can make it to the end of this chapter. But like with the New Yorker, there's no end. You have to make it to the end. There's no marker. And so this is the same with your emails. You want to show to your reader that you are bringing them on the journey. So how you do that is by having like short, crisp paragraphs, like 2 sentences, 3 sentences max. And that then throughout, you're bolding certain parts. So you're highlighting, you take your cursor, you highlight, and you go up, if you're in Google Docs or in Word, you press that B button, and you bold it. Because what I like to do is I like to go back through my email at the end, and I just read the bold parts out loud to myself. I just read the bold out loud, and I go, do I get what this email is about? And then I'm like, okay, great. So the other thing that you can do is also separate with bullet points. Use bullet points. Maybe put something in the center, and then the other part is maybe on this side. You know what I mean? Like making sure that you break up the text for the eye. I also am a big, big fan of getting rid of templates. I think that having a template makes it feel like it also separates that friend level. Like it takes away from that, like where it's that personal connection. So if we think about like the Oprah of like online, well, she's not even Oprah, she's herself, is the great Marie Forleo. Who here gets emails from Marie Forleo? Let's see if ever, I think a lot of us know who Marie Forleo is, right? And Marie, her emails, if you go look, they're templateless. There's no like big photo of her at the top. It would just say like, hey, Amy, and it just starts. The email just starts, and then she signs it. It's no fancy signature. It just says XO typed out Marie. And that's how I do my emails too. So I really encourage you to just kind of the theme of when you're doing your emails is simple is better. Like simple is better. Like you don't need a fancy template. You don't need any of that stuff. You can write like connected, like friend to friend, human to human, type your name. If you guys notice, I don't even type Marisa anymore. I just type like, I always type like copy that M. Because I really feel that way about you guys. Like I'm appreciative that you're part of this community. You're my readers. You're my community. You are, you're my people. So I don't need to be all formal with my fancy, like, founding father signature at the end of the email. I can sign off like M. I'm going to be back next week. Like this isn't the last time you're going to hear from me. So all those things are very small things along the way that kind of add up in your emails. So thinking about that for yourself. And also remember, like, don't always make it too when you're writing like a monologue. Think about where you can throw out questions in the middle. Think about where you could describe something and say, when I wrote that email to you guys and I said, oh gosh, was this you? People saying, crush your Q3 goals, and then I kind of described something about how I felt about it. And I said, maybe you feel the same way. Like I'm asking things along the way. Like, do you ever feel this way? Maybe this has happened to you too. Hey, tell me if this is you. And then I might list out 3 things. So where can you like separate out the kind of like monologue language to like include your readers? And questions is the best way you can do that. We're just like in our brains wired to stop and look at a question. It's why questions are so powerful. I've been teaching my ladies in the Write Your Website workshop. We've been talking a lot, like we just talked about homepages. And we were talking about like, there's this section that I like to call like the John Lennon Imagine section. So it's where you take kind of the reader's pain points and you kind of switch them around. Like I say, imagine if the next email you sent, you were flooded with 20 responses, you know? It's like being able to ask people like real quality questions. And it just makes our minds kind of stop. So I'm always encouraging in all kinds of copy, where can you ask a question? Where can you kind of stop in your story and go, maybe this has happened to you too? Or has this been you too? Or maybe you haven't been stuck on a water park slide when the power went out. I don't know what it is. Like you just ask like a question in the middle, you know, to just kind of keep them re-engaged. That's really important. So those are just a couple of mistakes that I see. So the other question that you probably are having is like, okay, Marisa, I'm starting to like hear what you're saying about this, but like, how do I actually like get it out for myself? So one of the things that I really do is I'm a real big believer in like setting a timer for yourself and write out an email. So set out the timer for maybe, let's say, like you can use the Pomodoro technique, which, you know, a lot of people are a fan of. You could even go smaller than that. Like set the timer for like 7 minutes and just start writing out your initial, like your thoughts of what could be in this email. You know, just start writing, and it might just be like total shit when you start. That's totally fine. Like get it out there. You know, then maybe you step away from it and then you come back and you kind of look at it again. The other really great part that you can give yourself in terms of when you're actually sitting down to write the email is to look at it like this, like 20%. So we're going to look at it in like, my math is kind of terrible. So feel free to tell me if my math is totally off, you guys. But it's like 20% at the top is like that story, that hook 'em in the beginning, right? With like that powerful like statement, and you're going to start to tell them like the story that's going to connect, which we'll talk about this in a second. Then that middle part of the email, like that 60% of it is then turning back to them. So then if I said, like I told you, let's take again that email that I sent to you guys about myself, about, you know, are you inundated with the signs that say A, B, you know, crush your goals or whatever. And I told a little story. Then I turn it back around and I say, you know, are you feeling frustrated with this? I'm feeling like, what are you going to do next for this quarter? And feeling, so I spend the majority of it, like the 60%, giving back the tips or saying, here's what I think you should do instead of worrying about that nonsense. Do this instead. So 20% at the top is like your story or introducing like your spin on the hit list or introducing your shit list moment. Then the middle part is transitioning over to them to give them the tips, to say, here's what I'd like you to do instead, or now here's my spin on it, here's how you can do it for yourself. And then that bottom like 10% is then that strong call to action, which is what you want them to do next from this information. So wait, 60, 70, 80, 90. Yeah, because there's another 10%. Okay, good. So that bottom part is that strong call to action, which is what do you want them to do next, which we're going to dive into in a second, but I just want to give you like the outline. So do you want them to hit reply? Do you want them to go over to a blog that maybe explains it more? Do you want them to come to your Facebook group? Do you want them to book a call with you? Like, what is the clear call to action that you want? And it isn't always book a call, book a call, book a call. If you keep getting that email all the time, like it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like you know you can get it at any time. As opposed to, especially if you have a smaller list, this is your bread and butter. This is your opportunity to just have people hit reply and respond to you and start a conversation with them. So I can't tell you how many people hit reply and responded to me that I'm not an ongoing conversation. Like that email brought me clients because I was able to just start a conversation and say, yeah, I know, totally, right? And then start to say, hey, tell me a little bit more about your business. So where are you in quarter 3? What has been going on? Can't wait to hear. And then that person responded. And they said, you know what, I have a few tips around this. Let's hop on a call. I'll have my assistant schedule you. And I'd love to chat with you about this. Better than me putting book a call so I can save your coffee. It's like after a while, it's like, okay. As opposed to looking to where you can create a relationship with the person and understand that you're setting the stage for the sale, for the conversion from there. So looking at your list as your, like I do with all of you, your readers, your community, your people, not your list, so to speak. And you heard Sarah and Tarzan talk about that too in their interview about like just the way you feel about your list and how you communicate with them. So that's kind of how I like to like think about like the body of kind of the story of how, kind of how the email is set up. So then within there, so then here's the next part of that. So it's like, okay, 20%, 60%, 10% is the call to action. And then there's this other 10%, which I'm going to tell you about in a second. So now you go, okay, Marisa, awesome. I understand that I have to have that 20% at the top. So how do I do that? So stories are the key to all of this. Stories is where, because people buy from people, they want to know how you relate to them. So remember back when Tarzan and Sarah were talking about like the buyer personas, and they were talking about like the Phoebes, the people who like, they want the story, they want to connect with you. When you're like really priming your email, your readers to like read you, they want to read stories. Like, yes, they want the tips and they want to know the how-tos, but it's really the story is how we engage. I mean, storytelling is like the oldest form of communication we have as like humans, like as a species. Like storytelling is our like oldest form of that, of, you know, it's where theater originated. It's where everything, like we're primed to be interested in stories. So, okay, you might be asking, Marisa, does this mean I have to tell like my rags to riches story? Is this what you mean? Do I have to tell my Elizabeth Gilbert crying on the bathroom floor at the beginning of Eat, Pray, Love when she's like about to, you know, transform her life, which I always use as an example? Or do I always have to tell that moment before I decided to lose 25 pounds or whatever it is? And it's like, yes, sometimes that story is great in the email, but no, that's actually not. People want your, what we call in the acting world, what I learned at Harvard in acting, we call it your slice of life. They want to know the everyday things that make you you. So it's no coincidence, right? In magazines, like in Us magazine, we're going to talk about magazines in a minute too. It's no coincidence that in magazines that they have that whole section in Us magazine where it's like stars. They're just like us. They grocery shop. They pump gas. They get sweaty at yoga class. They wear flip-flops to the mall. Like, it's because it makes us feel like we're connected to them. This is the same as your readers. They want to know your people too, which is why people no longer want to see you like sipping a matcha, like in a sun-kissed like beach, like, oh, my life is so whatever. They want to see you like living your everyday life. So it's where you can create those connection points. So how do you do that? You start right now to either on your phone, a piece of paper, whatever it is, start to create your story prompts. Your prompts. That time at Target, I struck up a conversation with a woman, and it made me think about this. That time my pen ran out of ink right when I was supposed to take a confirmation call from my bank. Like all of these kinds of little moments, like slice of life. I was watching my daughter at her soccer practice, and I thought of this. So all of those moments, all of those story prompts, I literally have a list of them because my husband always says, my husband's really the person who got me to create the actual list, because I used to just go, oh, I'll remember it, because I have a little bit of like that Rain Man brain about myself, like I will remember this stuff. But my husband was like, you really need to make the list so you can go back. So this is like if you know you're going to send an email, and let's say you know you want to talk about, I'm just going to make up something. You know that you want to talk to them about like, you know, the 5 ways to send better emails or something. I might start my story by saying, you know, I was at Target and I struck up a conversation with this woman and we started talking about, you know, I said, oh yeah, I love that brand too. And she responded, totally making this up. And she responded to me and we struck up this conversation, and it got me thinking like, wow, when you can communicate with people like one-to-one, you can create like a friendship or a spark from anywhere. And it got me thinking, this is the same thing you need to do with your email. So I created a really awesome 5 checklists to make sure that your emails are as personable as, you know, me and my new friend Sue from Target. So it's like thinking about those stories in your life, those moments that happen. I'm going to show you some examples of this, but start to think about that for yourself. Like, what are those story prompts? Another example I had is that I sent an email not too long ago, a couple months ago, where I wanted to segment the list. I wanted to start to create a world where if you were a person who was coming to me for like done for you, like you wanted to hire me to do the copy, versus you wanted to be in a program. Maybe you were great for Write Your Website workshop. Maybe you're a great candidate for the Copy Confidence Society. And I didn't want to bombard you with like a mixed kind of message. So I wanted to figure out, like, you'd click a button and then I would put you in your in your little segment, and then you'd only get the emails that, you know, you really wanted to get from me. So I'm like, well, how do I frickin' send this email? I'm like, what am I going to explain the science behind segmenting? I'm like, oh, bore me. So I come in, I'm like, I know I have to write this email. My assistant needs this email. We have to send it out. I walk in, I'm thinking, because I walk into my front door, which is right here. I look over at the console and I see this pile of mail, because I'm always going through our pile of mail every Saturday and make it a point. And every Saturday I spent most of the morning separating our mail from this woman named Natalie Cruz, who used to live in the house before us. It doesn't matter how many times I've told the postman she doesn't live here anymore. It doesn't matter how many times I've, got in contact with our neighbors to say, do you know, you know where Natalie lives now? Can you let her know that her mail's still coming here? And I was like, boom, that's the answer. So I literally wrote this email where I said, I spend every Saturday morning sorting through Natalie Cruz's mail. And I explained, like, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is me. Every morning I walk in, I see the thing. I got to go through, another thing for Natalie Cruz. I said, and it got me thinking, I don't ever want to be the Natalie Cruz of your inbox, where you're like, oh, is this email right for me? Should I be opening it? Is this something I need from Marisa? So I want to make this simple. I want to declutter it. I want to non-Natalie Cruz your inbox right now. I want you to click which one of these applies to you, and then you'll only get the emails from me that are relevant. And that's it. And I said, love having you part of this community, and then I put like PS, which we'll talk about in a second. I was like, PS, do you think I should let Natalie Cruz know about the this like IRS thing or something funny that I kind of made up? I'm like, I probably should make sure Natalie Cruz gets that email, and probably those Bed Bath & Beyond coupons too. Instead of writing some boring ass email, which is like, segment yourself so I can send you information you need, right? So it's just, but in order to do that, you got to get yourself in the habit of starting those stories, because I don't expect you to be at the level that I'm at. People pay me big bucks to be able to come up with this stuff fast like that, right? So I don't expect you to leave this call and become like this story generating machine. But what I do expect is that you'll start to create the prompts for yourself that when you do sit, you can go look and go, hey, how could I connect that to what I want to talk about tonight? How could I connect that in a Facebook Live? How could I connect that in an email? So the way that you do that is to start kind of clocking yourself when those moments happen. So let me show you some examples of this, and then I'll talk you through the next part about this. And then there's a final part, and then we'll open up for some questions. But let me, hold on one second. I'm going to share my screen with you, which is always like technology, which you all know we're in Mercury's in retrograde and tech hates us this month. Can you all see my screen? Just give me like a wave. Talita, can you see it? I'm just looking at you, that's why. Okay, Talita said yes, okay. So just because this was part of my July content, you guys can see this here. So this is the email that I was talking about that I've been using kind of as this example, where I said, let's say this was to Stephanie. It's like, this would have come in Stephanie's inbox. This, thanks, but I call bullshit on this Q3 business tip. And it says, hey, Stephanie, raise your hand if this was all over your Facebook, Instagram, emails, and coffee shop chalkboards. So you're like, ooh, what was it? I want to know what it is. I'm going to read the next line. We're halfway through 2019. What new goals are you ready to crush? What's been good so far this year? What can be better? Where do you need to recommit? Go full throttle. Eye roll. In the words of 13-year-old Marisa to her mom when asked to clean her room, can I live? And then I was like, listen, you should be doing those things. And then I kind of go into a little bit about myself. Like, yeah, I've made a lot of money lately, but is that all I'm worried about now? And so then I kind of go into, not to get all Marianne. Oop, I think I'm getting noise. If you are here, will you just mute yourself if that was you, just in case? But I say, instead of worrying about all that, I'm about to go all Marianne Williamson on you. Just go with it. And then I go, here's your Q3 summer plan instead. And then I gave my tips. Go outside and sit in the sun. I was like, then I go to the beach, drink a margarita, have sex. It's free, yo. Well, most of the time. Make concrete plans to see your friends and family. And then I put an awesome like GIF or GIF or whatever it is of Marianne Williamson. I think, well, I want to show it to you guys because now I feel like you have to see it to get the full picture. Where it says, girlfriend, you are so on. So that was in the email. So it's like, I've made it, you know, the top like 20%, 60% really to everybody. And then I say, here it is, tell me, what's your favorite summer activity? It can be from my list or your own. Hit reply now and lay it on me. Happy July, I freaking love having you here. Copy that, M. So the other 10% that I wanted to talk to you guys about is it usually can come in your PS, which is where you can just add an extra point of contact. Maybe it's a funny thing, like I put July as my birthday month, so I just wanted to mention that, like another point of connection. Maybe there's one more thing you wanted to say, and maybe the PS is your chance to be like funny or just have like another point of connection with the person, because sometimes the PS is the most read part of the email. People might just scroll down to there. So remember, you guys heard Tarzan and Sarah talk about this. Maybe you write a longer email, and then in the PS, it's like the TLDR, like the too long didn't read. So you're like, hey, I just wrote you a whole email. What I just wrote to you up there was like, stop worrying about all these business people telling you need to crush your goals and go have a margarita instead. Happy July. Maybe I just said that. Also, the 10% can be, where can you add a little fun to your email? That's like my Marianne Williamson GIF. Like, where can you add a little fun? Where can you add a meme? Where can you add a joke? Where can you like have some fun? GIFs are my favorite way to do this. Where can you add a little emoji? Where can you add like a little thing to like hit home in like a funny way? Okay, let's look at another example of this. So, okay, so I think you guys are gonna get this email, but whoops, you're gonna see it here now. So the subject says, the one exception to this is Irish breakfast. So let's say this was to Allison, because I'm just looking at your names here. So it said, hey, Allison, I haven't eaten my own meal since 2013. Fact. Let me explain. And now I'm going to tell you a story about when Eric and I first moved to New York City. We had pennies to our name. So we just started splitting food to be able to enjoy the cuisine in New York City. So we just started splitting entrees because we didn't really want to cook. Our kitchen was literally inside of an old coat closet. And we wanted to get out and see the city, but we didn't have any money. So we just started splitting food. And now, all these years later, we realize we're still doing it. So Eric's mom once said to us, you know, you can order your own food, you know? And we were like, no longer about money. We realized our stomachs were now used to sharing. We liked it this way. We're happier this way. Here's the transition sentence. I feel this about business too. There are just things I don't want to do even though everyone else is doing it, like Facebook ads or turning Coffee Chat into a podcast. Or what about YouTube? Why am I not taking advantage of it? You know, and then I kind of explain. I say, this is why it's so important to create a strategy that works for you and let the other shiz go. Let's do it right now. You down? In your business, what can I give you permission to only focus on? What's one thing you can let go of? Hit reply and tell me. The first step is always declaring it. Copy that, M. So make sure if you get this email, you respond to me, okay? And then P.S., here's a little fun. Oddly enough, Eric and I don't split breakfast out. I don't share my Irish breakfast with anyone. You know what I mean? And that ties back to the subject line, which is the one exception to this is Irish breakfast. So it's where can you have a little bit of fun? Where can you tell your story? Where can you connect it back to your reader? Where can you have a clear call to action? And that, like, again, I just repeated myself, but where can you have a little bit of fun? And so when it comes to that clear call to action, I'm going to show you another example of this. We should talk about this in the acting world. Like when we would get up with our scene partner, before we could even start the scene, we would have to tell my teacher, Scott, we would have to say what was our intention for the scene. So I'd have to say, well, I want Cindy to swallow a bitter pill. I want Cindy to tell me I'm right. I want Cindy to hug me, like whatever the intention was. So when I first started doing emails for people, one of the first things I realized was like from the actors world, I was like, nobody has a flippin' clear intention here. So that's where it's so important at the bottom to tell them what you want them to do. Click here to read the 5 tips on. Hit reply and tell me. come on over to Facebook and watch the live where I detail this. Follow me on Instagram because, and so not only do you state the intention, you give them a reason of why you want them to do it. So here I've kind of backed it up with a story, but for you guys, sometimes it's simply as saying like, go on over to the blog where I've listed out these 5 steps in a clear, easy way for you. You know, what's in it for them if they click over? What's in it for them if they come and watch the Facebook Live? How can it always go back to them in that sense? So if you do nothing else, if you tell like a great story and you have a clear call to action, you are light years past most people in inbox walking around saying email is dead. So let me find this other example I want to show you. So this week I'm sending out a whole thing inviting people to watch me live edit websites. But I wanted to do something for my, for my readers, for like this, for my readers, because I love you guys. And it's my birthday. I'm going to be 35. So I'm like, how can I combine this and make this fun? So I created this thing where I'm going to live edit websites. So I'm just laughing because I see this picture of me as a little kid like on the screen. So it says, you're invited to my B-Day for real. And then it says, quick, what was your favorite way to celebrate your birthday as a kid? My birthday every late July took place at the Ground Round. Heard of it? This was back in the 90s when Cal was simply decoration to level up the burger plate presentation. Not to eat, the horror. And Sundays were served in small baseball-themed plastic cups on top of having cake. The joy. And then I asked my mother, I said, Mom, do you have a picture of me from the Ground Round? She goes, are you kidding me? I have tons. I go, will you send me one? And she sent me this and I was like, bingo, nailing it. So I put this in. And then I said, here I am writing this to you 3 days before my 35th birthday and there are no Ground Rounds anymore. What's a girl to do? Celebrate with you, to say thank you for being part of this kick-ass community. So you're invited to my 35th birthday extravaganza. What's the theme if it isn't ostracizing Cal and licking chocolate sauce from plastic cups? It's copy, of course, specifically websites. And then I'm going to talk about like what I want from them. So now I'm inviting them to something, but I've created kind of a story around it as opposed to just being like, you're invited to something so fabulous because I'm fabulous or blah, blah, blah. Like I've given them a story around it. So I just want to show you one more example of this. Okay. So this is kind of the final like invite I'm going to send about this. This is going to be on July 30th. So this happened. One of my students in the Copy Confidence Society, she got married. So I told the ladies, I'm going to send flowers on behalf of all of us, just so you know. So this really happened last week. And I was like, oh, I'm using this as a story. It works. So I said, hi, Talita. My student Stacy got married on a Monday. Just true, she got married on a Monday. Last Monday to be exact. I wanted to send her flowers for me and the ladies of the Copy Confidence Society. Off I go to Google to look for florists near her in Chicago. Turns out Chicago's got a florist on every corner and they all have great reviews. Next step, check the websites. Oof. Every single website felt like the last. It was all a mix of always hand arranged, always hand delivered, with the words quality, flower, and bouquet splashed across the screen. Now you might be thinking, Marisa, what the heck else can you say about flowers? So you see I've inserted a question here. Wait for it. I chose Goldie's Flower Shop because something about the name felt personal, like maybe Goldie herself was going to answer the phone. But I got Paige. Lucky day for me. She hung out while I verified Stacy's address with my assistant. She asked me about her personality, vibe, what kind of flowers she might like, arrangement style. Elegant with a splash of boho was our final choice. Double checked the note and spelling, asked me how much I wanted to spend, gave me options. So this needs to be on Goldie's homepage, where your bouquet feels handpicked by your best friend. And she knows that chrysanthemum symbolizes joy. And now I turn it around and go, is your website helping you stand out from the crowd? Oh, I have an error here. I have a spelling error here. Whoops. Does it speak specifically to who you want to serve? Are you getting discovery calls booked? Ready to be 100% heck yeah to those? Then you need to join me for my 35th birthday extravaganza. So there's another example of how I kind of like told the story there. So the last thing I kind of want to tell you before I kind of open it up for questions is the last part of this, which is making sure that when you're doing all of this work, so let's say you're like, all right, Marisa, I'm going to make my story prompts. I'm going to get my word closet going. I'm going to just start writing these emails. But what about the subject line? Like, how do I make sure that people actually open that? So your best friend for a subject line is magazines. Magazines are your best friend. So you want to grab yourself, like, Cosmo is my favorite go-to. You can grab like Money, you could grab Golf, you could grab Runner's World. It doesn't matter what it is, because magazines, hold on, I don't have my best one with me. Pause. Right here. Just dropped my computer. Okay, I needed this though. This is the most important part. Is this right here. So like Women's Health or like Cosmo, those are like your better ones in that sense, because they're meant for you to read, to like open, to like look at it. So for example, it says Kale 2.0, 7 greens you need to try. So now you could say in your own niche, how could you flip this around? You know, I could say like home pages 2.0, 3 tips you need to use today, or something like that. Here's one. It says, best morning ever, easy breakfast, turbo workouts. So how could you like switch that around? Best email ever, best invite ever if you're inviting somebody or something. The art of being a badass, power through your fears. Like you can Google Cosmo, you can Google Women's Health, you can just Google their covers. And then you can just look, and I have another document, I do this for clients all the time, where I will literally take like Cosmo covers, and people pay me to do this, and I will literally sub those for them. So they have like a whole running list for themselves that they can go in and use. So magazines are a really, really great tip for that. When I knocked my computer over, I knocked my light over, but my light is back now. The other thing that you can do is always remember what is in it like for them. What's the benefit that you want them to get out of it? You know, so if it's like when I said this email tip is actually gold, this website tip is gold, you know, and then sometimes you can create your subject line to maybe it's a little bit more surprising. Like I said, like the one exception to this is Irish breakfast. And you're like, what does she mean by that? Or I call bullshit on this Q3 biz tip, right? So play around with them. And then like Holly was talking about, you can always run your stuff through the headline analyzer to the AMI, I'll put the link in here. And you can always run it through and see how it's performing. I'll tell you this, it's gonna really only score high when you're doing things like this, like the 7 new greens you need to try. If you do more of the surprising subject lines, like the I call, or like the Irish breakfast one, the one exception to this is Irish breakfast, it might not clock that one as high because it's like, it's not registered to kind of do that, but know that those subject lines also work. So you really just kind of have to play around and then go back to your numbers, how we started this night, and start to see, hey, this got a little bit more opens than the others. Why? Let me go analyze, let me go look. Oh, look at this subject line. And then if you start doing this consistently, 3 months, whatever, now you have really great data to go, now I know the kinds of subject lines that my people open. So what I've noticed about my peeps is y'all don't really love these ones, the 7 new, like you do, but you really love the ones where I'm like, I call bullshit on this Q3 biz tip, or the one exception to this is Irish breakfast. It's just kind of my world, which makes sense because it's a little bit more my vibe. So I'm like, makes sense. Doesn't mean I don't do the other ones, but I understand now based on the data what my people want. And then you give the people what they want. So you really got to play around with the subject line. That's why I love email, because in real time, you can go back 24 hours later and see how the email performed. The one thing that you're not going to be worried about is the unsubscribes. You're not worried about people who unsubscribe. A lot of people unsubscribe from that. I call bullshit on this Q3 business tip. I had many people write to me and tell me that they were unsubscribing because I used unprofessional language. And I wish them well, because they're in the wrong place then, you know, and that's okay, right? So you're not worried about the unsubscribe. So if you know you're going to log into MailChimp or ConvertKit and get stuck on the unsubscribes, then figure out who in your life can check those stats for you. Because I used to be like that too. So I have my assistant go in and tell me how an email performed. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask a friend to say, hey, if I show you how to log into something, will you do this for me? So that you can stay focused on the stuff that matters and not get caught up in the other stuff. So those are kind of some of my favorite, like the 3 steps that I use every day with my students and my clients to turn your boring emails into personality-filled selling machines. And now I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask me all your questions. So if you have a burning question, I'm just going to kind of look through the chat, but if you already have a burning question you know you want to ask me, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask me. That's what I'm here for. But I'm going to start reading through this while I'm waiting for someone to unmute themselves.
Marissa, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Ren. How are you?
I can't get the video camera on my iMac to work right now. So.
Oh my God, that's okay. I dropped my computer. Like, it's all fine. Like, I literally knocked over my computer. Like, it's all good. Go ahead.
So, I have the Studio 29 photography business, and then I also have the lifestyle blog. Mm-hmm. And I have the same like email list, so they can subscribe either from the blog or they can subscribe from the Studio 29 page. So, but the lifestyle blog is doing really well because our current like wedding clients that we book a year in advance, they use the lifestyle blog to kind of continually, keep in touch with us and get to know us. But I'm wondering, so let me back up for a second. Okay, so the emails that I send out are usually, particularly right now I'm doing, I think I talked about it in one of the live classes, I'm kind of doing like a series. Every Monday I post like a tip for a specific health plan and how to keep it alive. And then eventually, like you said, I'm going to do like a little book and then maybe get like a sponsorship on whatever. So I'm doing kind of more emails about specific things that I'm doing on the blog. How can I write emails that are like, hey, I shot this recent wedding. Hey, I did this family session. Kind of like just, should I do that as like a monthly update about, hey, this is what's going on in my life, but this is what's going on in the business. What is a good way to kind of share my photography work without it just feeling so templated?
So is part of it wanting to get photography clients as well?
If they are local, I would love to do more family sessions because we're kind of, the amount of income that we're making from the blog now is going to be able to be passive income to make up for what we are making for weddings, which is huge. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get more family clients. And then also with the lifestyle blog, we've been getting more brand work. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of want to keep the traffic also going to the photography site.
Okay. Awesome. So there can be sometimes where maybe you are photographing somebody and there's like something that comes out of it. Like you have a really like funny story that happens or a way that you connected, and you could use that as a way in to kind of share about the photography. Yeah. And then connect it back to whatever. So the thing is, whenever you're sitting down to write the email, you have to set what the intention is first. So what do you want them to do for that particular email? Do you want them to hit reply? Do you want them to go to another page? So it's like set up your intention first. So you're kind of working backwards.
Okay.
And then from there you go, okay, if you know you want them to maybe click over and see more about the photography or something like that, then you can work backwards and figure out like what's the story or something that could connect. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you could do a monthly kind of roundup where it's more like, I used to do this for a client where it was like her monthly favorites. And people love it. Like every month she would just send out like a book she was reading that she really loved or a podcast she was listening to. And I've done this a bunch too. So you could also include it in like a monthly roundup too. Like here's what we worked on this month, or kind of sharing it in that way too. More like kind of like those old like school newsletters, but with like a cool twist to it.
Okay, perfect.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I kind of love doing like, you're inspiring me to get back into it. I love like, just like at the end of every month or something, just do like, your monthly favorites. Like this is what I read, or I listened to this thing called The Copy Chat and I really loved it. I got these earrings from H&M, like share like, just those kind of maybe like those fun tidbits or something like in a roundup. But always, this goes for everybody. Take time to sit the first thing that you do is, what do you want to get from this email? What's the intention? What do you want them to do? And then you can work backwards. So whenever I sit down, I go, okay, what do I want them to do today? Hit reply. That's basically where I'm at. I want them to hit reply, or I want them to come on over to the Facebook group. And then I work backwards and go, okay, what's the next steps that go beyond that? But if you have a clear intention, it's easier to do all the other steps. Adrian, I think you asked, I missed what was the top 20% and then the 60%. So that top 20% is really the connection, the like story. Like I went to see The Lion King and I noticed, so I know Adrian because Adrian has been in the Copy Chat community for a while. Adrian, are you here still?
Yep, I'm right here.
Hi, Adrian. What's up?
Hi.
Hi. So I'm just making this up, right? Because, Lisa Simone Richards talked about this, like news jacking. You can do the same thing for your emails. Like you could be like, I'm just making this up. Like I went to see The Lion King and I realized that like Simba witnessing his father's death that could really scar a kid, like quite literally, because then Scar shows up and like kicks him off of Pride Rock. And it got me thinking about the things that you might not think that are impacting your kids, but they are. Do you know what I mean? Like there's things that are like going on that you can use as like the connection. And that's that 20% at the top.
Okay.
That's that connection piece. And then the 60% is then turning it around and going, so how do you get your kid to have like the symbol level confidence that he has when he waltzes back in Hakuna Matata with like Timon and Pumbaa? Like, how do we get them to have that, or whatever it might be? So that's your 60% is the tips, but the 20% is like your way in, like your hook in. And so one of my favorite ways to do that is to look at like what's going on in the world that people are interested in. Is there like a TV show that's out right now, a movie like Game of Thrones or like Stranger Things? And it doesn't always have to be pop culture. I just finished writing a series of emails for a client who I absolutely am obsessed with. And she loves Karate Kid. Like that's her thing. Like she loves it. I did a whole entire email themed on Karate Kid. And if I die tomorrow, it's my best work. So it's like epic. And it's like, because we talked about something that she loved that is kind of like timeless in that sense and connected it back to like her readers. So it doesn't always have to be like super pop culture current if that's not you, but that's what the 20% is, Adrian. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that helps a lot. And I actually had a question kind of like in general. A lot of obviously my niche is parents. So they actually don't really have a lot of pop culture connection because they don't have a lot of time to be watching TV and some of them, me included. But one of the things I wanted to ask was kind of like a little different than that is, can I move off it? So there are some emails I send that I just say reply or let me know if, I don't know if you're struggling with this too, or something like that. And I really don't get a lot of replies, specifically from people that are, reading the emails. Even though I'm getting like a good bit of opens and then some click throughs, but not a whole ton. But I think and then I'll talk to someone in person and they'll be like, oh my gosh, your emails have been helping me so much. And I'm really like loving them and they're great. And I did that thing that you said in that last email that, about this or that, but I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I'm actually like, thank God I like know some of these people in person, because otherwise I would be like, I don't think anything is like hitting. I don't think anybody's, vibing with any of it. So I'm just wondering, like, is there something else? Like, I don't know, I guess I'm using story and I'm trying to, connect it up. And I'm just wondering if people are just not like in the mode of reply. Right? Because like you have to kind of be in the right place, the right time sometimes to actually like reply back and have a second to type, or I don't know if that's just what it is.
No, totally. So there's a couple of different things to think about. So, with parents, like they're very much like on the go. They're, so it's also looking at like the quality of the question you're asking them.
Okay.
Like so simple. Because even sometimes if you say like, what's the number one, like, not even the like, let me know if you struggle with this, like saying like, what's the number one word you would use to describe, like, so that their response really could just be one word back to you.
Okay.
9 out of 10 times they're going to write more than that.
Okay.
But you've made it so clear, like you're even taking them on the journey like a little bit even more so, because if you think about like the moms, like they are like on the go and all that, it also might be that there's a sense of the email where you slow them down. where you're saying like, I really want you to take a moment and really think about this for yourself, where you're really stepping in as the leader.
Okay.
You know, that you're like the alpha, like you're the expert here, and really kind of slowing them down and using that as a connection and saying, often we might, you know, you read this and you say you're going to do it, but one of the things that, you know, is declaring it or creating that community. And then maybe you guide them to then take the action.
Okay. And there's like, yeah, that helps a lot. And then there's another, I'm addressing, when I talk to my ideal client, like I did a lot of interviews with them, people that I hadn't actually, that haven't actually signed up with me. And I say like, what's your number one obstacle to like signing up for like one-on-one coaching? And they say like, well, I just feel like I don't, like, it's going to take so much energy for me to commit to the time and just being, being invested. And then I have to take that information and apply it. And it feels like it's going to be extra time and energy. And basically what I'm trying to say is like, have you ever like taken an email and just like addressed like general objections and stuff like that, like from what people say and like,
Totally.
You know, yeah. Okay.
It's a great question, Adrienne. So there's a couple different ways. If you guys remember from Tarzan and Sarah, they talked about like the different buyer personas. So sometimes you're going to write that like objection email, like FAQ. You might just lay it out FAQ style for like the Rosses, the people who like need to like kind of be, you know, spoken to about the objections. So you might have like a list. Maybe you do an email where it's like 3 objections. And this would be something great if you were like promoting something. You could do this in like a connection email, like your emails. But if you were promoting something, it'd be great.
Yeah.
One of them was like, hey, you've been wanting to join, you've been thinking about whatever the name of your program, you've been thinking about wanting to join this with me. And, you know, maybe you just haven't gotten around to it. Great. If that's you, click here. And then that sends them to the page to sign up. Right. So you've hit your Monica's who maybe just didn't get around to it. Like Sarah was talking about, the Reds. So you hit them. Okay. They're going to go, but you might be unsure. You might not know if this is absolutely right for you. So let me lay it out for you FAQ style.
Okay.
And then you list that question. Adrienne, I'd love to do this, but I'm worried this is going to suck all my energy.
Right. Okay.
Write
Great.
your response. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say to that, this goes beyond emails, but let's talk about it anyways, is when you're on a sales call with somebody, like a session like that, you have to make sure that you've really enrolled them in the vision. So a lot of times we're like nervous because we know we have to kind of like get to that point, right? I'm sure everyone can relate where at some point I'm going to have to say how much my shit costs and all of this, but spend the majority of your time asking the woman, what does this mean if you're able to get this if you're able to do this?
Yeah.
And then she's going to give you some response that's not the answer. And it's
right.
your job to go, so what does it mean if that happens? So if someone comes to me and they want to talk about like the Copy Confidence Society, I'm just doing this. So they go, well, you know, I want to be able to like get more clients. Okay, I could stop there, but that's actually not good enough because that's not a good indicator for me that someone's really going to do the work. So I go, okay, so what happens if you get more clients? What does that mean? Well, then I'm able to, you know, have more money. Okay, so what does it mean if you have more money? Well, I'm able to, you know, be able to like pay for my wedding. Okay, now we're at a place where they have skin in the game. So it's your kind of job on those calls to really coax it out and get them to connect with why this really matters. So for a mom, it's really connecting back to like, what does it mean if she does, like, what will this mean for her family? So that when the objection comes up, which it will, you're able to address back and go, hey, Marisa, remember you talked about how important this is. So
right.
What happens if you wait another year to do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So spending more time kind of enrolling them in their own vision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that definitely helps. Yeah. Because I mean, I'm sure they can understand the impact that if they invested time now, that the long-term benefits, like I just have to make it kind of clear what those clear. Right. Yeah. And I think I just need to kind of like, yeah.
You know, because you're the coach. This is like the
right.
coach of the coach.
Yeah.
you know the answer is doing this. Like, it's from a sincere place, right?
Right.
When people say like, I'm scared to sell. It's like, well, if you believe so much in what you do, then you're like, that's your responsibility to say, hey, like, I can really help you here. Right. But if you say it like that, so you have to connect it back to what their vision is for them. So with like my new coach, I dropped a lot of money. Okay. And it wasn't like, oh, I want to like step up and make more clients. It was really like, why am I ready to do this now? Why am I ready to step up even in a bigger way? I've done all this work with the copy chat. I have clients. I'm not, worried about money. Why now? And it was like, and she got me down where I said, I really want to be able to have a baby and never have to worry or be how my mom was, or my mom would be like out at the ground round, like with her checkbook, like balancing just to make sure we could do this. And so I was like, and I know if I don't get it, myself prepared to go to that level now, I'll have a kid, it'll take over, whatever. So I was like ready. That meant way more to me than just, I want to like have more clients. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like your responsibility to kind of coax out what that is for them. Because they will have objections, Yeah. And you have to like welcome objections. People will have objections. It's your job to walk them through it.
Okay. Thank you. That really helps. Thanks, Marisa.
You're welcome. Anyone else? I'm just looking through these comments, but feel free to unmute yourself.
I'm Marisa.
Oh, Arian, I see you. And then I heard someone else too. So right after Arian, whoever that was, you're next. Hi, Arian.
Hi, I have 2 questions. This has been so great, so helpful. I, of course, love to do videos, and I'm so much better on video than the written word.
Yep.
And this is where I have my challenge. Like, I'm super funny and engaging and interesting on video, and then I try to write something and it's like, blah. So,
right.
How does someone like me, like, what do you recommend of how to do emails?
Yeah, get those emails to go over to your video. So if you're going to talk about something awesome, that's what your email is about. Maybe there's a little bit of a story, and then you're like, and I'm going to be talking about it today or whatever it is. Click here for the 3 tips that you described so well. Like, you're going to break it down into those tips that you do so well. So you could say like, maybe you could give them like one of the tips. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, to get the 2 other ones, like I'm breaking it down here, click, I'm going live at this time. Or you do a really awesome video, which all of yours are going to be awesome. So maybe you could choose a handful each week or something that then you send out into your email. You're like, so when I talked about in my one email in July, I said I made $16,933 in 1 week. So I got these responses of people that were like, hey, how did you do that or whatever? And I had done a Facebook Live on it. So my next email was like, hey, y'all wanted to know about this. So here's the tips. And I kind of like gave a little bit of the reasons why they'd want to go. And then I gave the link to the Facebook, and then it would bring them to the video to watch it.
Okay. So that's cool. So I've done that in the past. I mean, definitely I've done that in the past. I put a screenshot and a link, and I haven't got a lot of clickbacks. I always seem to get more, but I haven't used your tips of, how to make the emails more engaging so they want to go. And I like that, like giving them 1 tip and saying, come over for the rest. So It's like using them to get them to click over to the actual video.
Yeah, and it's also like the consistency of doing it, Like Sarah Dan, she was an expert on Copy Chat 1.0. She's going live every night at 7 p.m. So she's sending emails all the time. This is somebody who's like not worried about, like, she's just showing up and showing up often. So sometimes it's like, I'm going live about this tonight, you better be there. Or the next day she's like, this live was so good, and offering the tip and going. So she's staying so consistent with it.
Okay. Cool.
So I could see you like just being like, this is my plan from here on out, to just, this is going to be my thing. And the people who are on board with it are going to be on board. And maybe that whittles your list down, but then those are the people, like those are your most engaged people. And then also try out maybe offering like one of the tips, and then the other 2 are in there.
Okay. That's super.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. You're welcome. Like for the one where I said about the $16,000 or whatever, in the PS, I put, actually there's a 4th tip that I didn't even use myself, but it's like a quick way to make an extra $100, like fast. It's like minute 15 in the video.
Oops. Did I lose you? Anyway, am I still here?
Yeah, I see you. Did you hear me?
Yeah. I love that.
Okay. Yeah, so sometimes you can point them to say, skip right to minute 10. Like, hey, it all starts here if you want to just go right to that. Sometimes just give them the timestamp.
I love that. That's very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then for when I do write things, like how to, and I know you cover this, but it's still like, how do I bring, any of us bring the personality in? I mean, you've spoken about it, but it's still like, I don't know how to bring in my funniness. It seems like so like serious. And I'm like, I'm not a serious person.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is practice. Like you just have to get started, because even now I'm trying to go back to write longer. I'm trying to work on this memoir of myself about like losing my dad when I was a kid and all this. And I find it so hard to go back to that kind of writing. I find myself like, and my one friend was like, well, you just got to practice it. You got to sit down and get yourself back into like a novel writing person out of your kind of copy, like marketing speak. Like I'm writing chapters of this book where it's like 2 sentences each. And then it's like, know what I mean in the middle of it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is like going to resonate for like a book. You know what I mean? So a lot of it is just starting to practice. And it might start a little bit drier. You can even start writing it saying like, this happened to me today. And then maybe you write it out. And then eventually somewhere in there is going to be the like juicy part. And then you're going to take it. And maybe when you go back to edit, you're going to move that thing that you said, and that's going to become the top sentence.
Okay.
But it might be a little bit drier to start.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Brenna said, have you ever had trouble with the AMI site scoring? Yeah, it can be a little finicky. That's why I love it for like headlines. Sometimes with subject lines, I don't love it. I kind of have to like switch it up and figure it out. If you have a specific example, Brenna, I don't know if you're still here yet. I think you might have hopped out, but you can ask me and I'll answer it. Also, I'm so funny in person. I feel so funny. Karate Kid is Dallas's favorite movie. That's so funny, Talita. See, it connects. It connects all around. You don't think things like it, but it's like, I want to do a whole email about 90210. Like, I love 90210. I want to talk about it. Sarah says, do you use Facebook for those videos or YouTube or something else? I'm so new to email. I don't know how to send video with email. Sarah, are you here? Will you unmute yourself? Or maybe you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
So Sarah, will you ask me this question again?
Okay, so with those emails that you're sending video in, are you embedding the email in or the video into the email, or is it something you send them to Facebook and you pre-record it or you go live with that so it's sitting there?
Yep. So I either just put the link, but I write over the link and then I'll hype. So let me show you what I mean. It's easier if I just show you what I mean. So I'm gonna share my screen with you. So let's say I go to, nope, this is you guys. Hold on one second. So let's go to that $16,933 email. Okay. So I put I broke down the 2 ways I book this cash in the Copy Chat Facebook group. And then this was then hyperlinked, right? I took this, I didn't do this. My assistant did it. But then Hosanna took this, and then when she was doing the email, she went like this. See this little button up here? That's your hyperlink. And then you go insert link, apply. And now that's clickable. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then I asked her to put a screenshot from the video, for her to just take a screenshot. So that would just go while you're speaking, really, and you just Command Shift 3 and you take a screenshot of the screen. And then she put it in here, and then she made that clickable.
Gotcha.
So that's you take an image. Let me just show you. I don't have it because obviously she did it, but let me find that picture of me from the ground round. So it would be taking the picture. You see how it's clicked on now?
Yep.
Then you go up to the hyperlink again. I got to make sure I don't leave this like this. So hold on. So it's like that. And then you hit apply. Okay. And now that actual picture is now clickable too.
And that makes them go into your Facebook group.
Yeah, so then when they clicked it, it would take them to the video in the Facebook group.
Gotcha.
And if they're not a member of the group, they got to join the group to watch it, which is even better.
Yeah, I just set mine up, so I've been practicing in there. I can delete it.
Yeah, you can totally delete it. Hello, my computer fell over tonight. It's all fine. We're all going to survive. It's good. It's all going to be good. So that's a great question, Sarah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alyssa says, I'm good with the emails that provide value. I hate writing launch emails. Pep talk. Yeah, Alyssa. So this kind of requires a couple things. Alyssa, will you unmute yourself if you're here?
I'm here.
Hi, Alyssa. What's up?
Hi. How are ya?
I'm good. I'm good. So when it comes to your launch emails, I would really go back and listen to that in the coffee chat with Tarzan and Sarah, because it really comes down to thinking about your buyer personas. So it's like, this is just a crash. I'm just going to give this crash to you. So email number 1 is your announcement. You're announcing that the doors are open. So that's usually going to be a little bit longer because you're kind of like presenting like the course or the program. So what's your program, Alyssa?
It's Teacher Hustle University.
And what is that?
I teach teachers how to market their online business. I give them like foundations in marketing.
So like, is there like side hustle, like besides being a teacher?
Yeah, so that's what I'm teaching them when they have an online business as a side hustle, how they can market it and kind of just have that foundation. They can create, but they have trouble with the marketing.
Yeah, love it. So doors are open to Teacher Hustle Academy, right? So you open it up and you're like, you start talking to them like, you've been following me because you've been wanting me to like give you the tips. You've been wanting the tips to be able to like start this side hustle for your business, learn them, without bombarding yourself with the marketing. Like talk about the things that they've been wanting. Mm-hmm. And then I would say, be like, we'll hold my Earl Grey tea with half and half because I got you covered. Announcing Teacher Hustle Academy is open. And then that email is really kind of telling them like, what are the benefits? Like not the features yet, but what are they going to get? Like what's on the other side of the academy? Like what are some of the things that if they go through this program, they're going to get in the end?
Oh, I guess I'd have to think about the transformation. Like you're going to have a balance, you're going to have things on autopilot, you're going to have a solid foundation in marketing, and you're going to know what you're doing. You're not going to be just poking around and trying to do all the things.
Yep. So you're going to want to like talk about the benefits. Then you're going to say, and this all breaks down to 2 calls with me, like whatever it is, right? So that email is going to feel like a little bit, like that. And then you think, where can I add a little bit more fun here? Maybe there's a GIF, maybe there's like a picture of you, like those kinds of elements. Mm-hmm. Then the second email might be like Tarzan was talking about. Remember she mentioned like the TLDR. Mm-hmm. So maybe the second email is like a TLDR email, which is like, hey, I sent you a really long email yesterday. You probably didn't have time because you're too busy, like, grading papers until like midnight. So here's the super short version. Teacher Hustle Academy is open. Here's why you should join it. Click here to check out the sales page. Mm-hmm. And then your third email is like a case study or an example of someone that you've helped or something. Yep. And then your fourth email or somewhere in there, it doesn't have to be in this order. Now you're going to tell your story, right? Because I have a feeling you were a teacher who had started a side hustle.
Yeah, still am.
Boom. So you're going to talk about your story. You're going to get deep into that and that transformation for you, or a slice of life from that you learned or something.
Okay.
So you're going to kind of give yourself like those prompts. And then there's definitely going to be an email that's another longer one. That's like your FAQ, like laying it out, the questions that they might have. Yeah. And that's just knowing off the top of your head, like what are some of their objections that you already know they have?
Yeah, they're not going to have enough time. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be good enough. They're not as good as everybody else that's out there. Yeah, I could talk about all of that for sure.
And have you done this program before?
Yeah, I've launched it twice now.
Awesome. So you have some like social proof, some testimonials?
Yep. Yeah.
So what's great is when you're answering those FAQs, let's say somebody's like, I don't know if I'm good enough. You can be like, that's so funny you say that because Marisa thought that too. Right. And here's what Marisa said. And maybe you have a screenshot from, very bad, I'm speaking about myself. Maybe you have like a screenshot of me, or you have like a testimonial from me, or my picture with a quote I have. So it's always cool when you can back it up with that proof.
Perfect.
So those are just kind of some things that make it a little bit less painful,
And you're still providing value. You're just kind of also tucking in the sales part. I liked what you said too about like send more emails than you're comfortable with. I just need to remind myself about that. That's fine because half of them aren't even opening them anyway. Like it's fine.
People need, they say sometimes people need to see something 7 or 8 times or something like that before they take action or something. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather have you send more than not send enough, you know? Yeah. It's a good question.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Oh, I'm so excited. You're welcome. Talita Command Shift 4, thank you. Oh, Allison. Oh, bye, Allison. I'm just looking to see. Yes.
I have a question here.
Who is this? I can't see you.
Amy.
Amy, I don't see you. It's so weird. I'm speaking, but I don't see you.
Oh.
But I hear you, so keep talking. Go ahead.
Okay. So this has been great. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My kind of place where I get stuck is, so my industry niche is helping pet parents find holistic solutions for health and behavior so that their pets and fur babies can live the best life possible. And a lot of times I'm dealing with like aging, arthritis, anxieties, like where the people are just really, it's kind of tender subjects. We're going to lose our animals facing the end of life, or they're tearing things apart because of thunderstorms and separation anxiety, stuff like that. So when I'm writing emails, and my personality is like kind of the compassionate voice while they're really emotional, right? So the challenge I have when you see about a lot of these, copy things is like, make it exciting, how to get them to open to read and all that. But so what are your tips or suggestions of how to balance making it exciting and the curiosity in those open subject lines with that kind of compassionate, hey, all of your feelings are safe here with me. I get it. I understand, how you're feeling.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So one of my clients is a weight loss coach, and it's we can't always be like, sassafras, like, there's tender moments, especially if we're talking about like emotional eating or things like that. So that's when it's really important to really meet them where they're at and tell. Maybe your stories aren't going to be like as like, or, like for the lack of a better word, like funny or that, but they're going to be like, they're still going to be connected, and they're going to maybe be a little bit more touching in that sense, but the stories are still there. It's just that you might not have like all of the kind of sass or like the funniness that we've been discussing. For my client, for example, Jen, that is a weight loss coach, we told this like email about like when she used to emotionally eat, and we talked about like her and her first marriage. And it was like, that they like were barely talking to each other. And it was like, we told the story of them like sitting on opposite ends of the couch watching ER together. And it was kind of like, I know you might be feeling like that. Like you might be, feeling this way in your life, in your marriage, whatever it is, and then linking it back. So I think that there's ways that you can still do it. It's just that your stories are going to have more of like a touching theme to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
You don't feel like you have to you got to come out the gates like, George Carlin for this. It's what it is for you, right? So that your niche, like my client Kelly, who was the spiritual, I know, I don't think Kelly's writing like the sassy kind of emails that I'm writing. I think she's writing, I was looking for my hair tie, more of like, a little bit of those spiritual, or it's touching in that sense, about her faith and how she suffered from cancer. And certainly there's funny moments, So for you, I would say you're leading more with those touching stories, and then looking, where could I add a little bit of humor here, a little bit of that lightness to it. Where could I find that balance here, Yep. And what are you finding who is what are people coming to you for the most?
Because probably they're at their wits' ends a little bit, because traditional veterinary care doesn't really have a lot of options, or their medication options that have side effects.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be more natural and holistic in their approach.
Yeah.
And have a quality of life. They're not trying to fix their animal to be like totally fine. They know that, okay, this is just who they are, but we want to live the best we can with where we're at.
Yeah. So exactly. So it's also talking about, you know, bringing up those things about like what the normal, like modern, like mainstream, you know, maybe, you know, you could say like, is this you when you've been to the vet office? And maybe you're kind of like recreating that scenario, you know? And you like, you know that there's like a better way for your dog, and you're like, oh, what is it? And then you can kind of maybe give a little bit of a sneak peek into like your own method, your own way that you help. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, which is kind of a challenge too, because I do a lot of different methods and modalities, which is great from, I mean, how I market is kind of like, with me, you get it all.
Right. So I would say for the email, you're pulling out one thing, right? So this is another thing about email. So we don't need to tell them like everything. So for example, let's go back to my client, Jen, the weight loss, right? So we wrote an email about like, you're trying to figure out like just the eating part. Like that's the only thing this email was about, like the eating thing, like what to eat, when to eat. So she kind of has this, her own kind of method, like her own kind of plan. So that whole email was like, you know, you've been told by dieting that it's like, you know, this or paleo or do this or whatever it is. And it's like, whoa, that's exhausting. That's why I created this like simple. So for you, it would be maybe you're just calling out one of those modalities for the email. You don't have to worry about covering everything.
Okay.
You know, like right now I'm talking about emails. That's not the only thing that I write, right? You know? But like that's so wherever you can like really narrow in the focus, that's where you set up your intention. Like I want them to do something next, and that's what this is about. This email is about this particular modality or this particular thing that I want them to discover.
Okay. So using to that connection factor, the more stories that I would have that are going to connect to a situation that they're experiencing.
Totally.
Going to be, and not worry about trying to get sassy and happy or the, you know, shock values, or because shock would not like go well.
No, and it doesn't sound like you just from the few minutes we've been speaking. So it's not you. So you don't want, right? So you want to figure out what is you, like what is Amy? Like what does Amy bring to the table?
Okay.
Like, what's Amy's like hot sauce? I would also say I'm for sure you have a sense of humor because you're here and haven't left, and I've, you know, dropped like 2 F-bombs and dropped, you know what I mean? So you definitely have a sense of humor. So it's figuring out where are those moments that you can let that pop up of like what it means for you. You know, one of my students in the Copy Confidence Society, Kathy, the first time I ever talked to her, she was like this like wallflower, like very like almost like shy. Like in the 3 months we have been together, this girl's copy is like, it has those touching moments, but she's found her own sense of humor. Like I read some of this copy and I laugh, but she found like what that is for her. So I encourage you to know that you do have a little bit of that in you that you can explore too, but you don't have to like be me, you know, you get to be you and then add those moments for yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyone else before we head out? I know we've been chatting for a long time, but there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them for a few more minutes.
Yeah, Marissa, I have a question that's kind of similar to Amy's.
Hi, Sarah. And I have something I have to tell you too, because I heard back from Sage today, and she said that when you get a ticket to Legendary Live, there's a Facebook group where you can coordinate rooms with people.
Oh, that's perfect.
You emailed me and I said, I have to tell Sarah, and then I forgot until I just saw your face just now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, go ahead.
So I mean, I have a fairly sassy personality, but I am dealing with a really heavy topic because I am helping people who have been through trauma in their life to move past it to build a better business. And I'm finding it difficult. Like I've been specifically using the word trauma because I want it to be polarizing. I want to only get the people who are interested in exploring their trauma instead of people who are not wanting to go there yet. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how to kind of combined my personality with such a heavy topic?
Yeah, it's a great question. The other thing that I would encourage you to remember is you don't want, yes, you want them to explore their trauma, but you want them to be ready to work through it. So what happens is, and I don't think you guys have heard me say this, is that sometimes what I find people's copy, it's like speaking to the Eeyores of the crowd. So you know in Winnie the Pooh, like Eeyore is like the donkey's like always sad. It's like if we start to speak our copy to those people, those are the people who are going to stay in that trauma place, but they're not ready to move out of it, right? So we want to speak to the Tiggers of the crowd. So we want to recognize that they're in trauma for sure, but we want to speak to them like they're ready to come out of it. Because if not, what you're going to get is on sales calls and people that aren't ready to take the leap because they're still sitting in the trauma. They might still be in the therapy place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So you want to speak to the Tiggers of the crowd, not the Eeyores. So the way that you do that is to definitely mention the trauma, but it's always talking about those pain points, but the possibility, like what's beyond this? Like imagine if you could come out of this. Imagine if you could get to the other side.
Right.
There, right? And then there's definitely moments where then you can add your personality. So maybe there is one that's a little bit more touching, but then maybe there's like a little gif in it that's just like lightens the mood just a touch. You know what I mean?
Right. And I worked with my because I literally just hired a coach like 3 days ago for the first time ever, and was working with her on kind of the pitch portion. And so we changed it from just helping build a better business to continue to create a kick-ass company, so that it's got a little bit of the personality in it and is not going to, it'll deter the people who can't handle that I talk like that.
Yes, it's going to deter people who can handle talk about it. And then even saying continue a kick-ass business. Now you're speaking to somebody who like already has a business.
Yeah.
So you're not speaking to somebody who's like in that startup place that then you say, this is what it is to work with me. And they're like, whoa, right? You're speaking to somebody who's like ready to make that investment. So we always have to think about like who we're speaking to, like, where can we just elevate the language so that we're, and there are people who work with beginners. Like there's a copywriter I know, and like she loves to work with beginners. So her copy is all like how you can make your first $1,000 in your business. So her copy is pointed that way. It makes sense. You know what I mean? But you always just want to just balance it. So I would say you still can talk about it, but there's ways where you can maybe offer like the gift in the middle of it. Or maybe it's like telling your story, and your story is like, there's a little bit of funniness to telling that trauma.
Right.
And maybe you flip it around on them and say, you know, but like in all seriousness, like I'm sure you've been there too. And you know what, even though I just whatever laughed about it, it sucks, right? Or like whatever it is to kind of bring it back down.
Yeah, I've had a hard time with that too, because my mom says I'm an oversharer. And the first email that I sent out, because I have 13 meetup groups that I run. So I have about 20,000 people in my groups. And I sent out an email to everybody, and it was like, here's 20 different traumas I've been through in my life. And everybody was like, that's way too much.
No. You want to go down specific to like one or two things. So each email, like I was saying to Amy, wherever I was just saying, it's about one specific thing.
Right.
So it's like, I'm going to tell the story of like that I used to share food. Well, I still do share entrees with my husband.
Right.
There's a million stories I could tell you about my husband, you know what I mean? But I'm going to pull out one thing. Like I was talking on an Instagram post a couple of months ago about like my student loan or whatever. And I mean, talk about, well, certainly financial trauma, but like I pulled out one moment. I was like, I remember sitting on this Greyhound bus. Eric went to get me a snack. We were on our way back to New York City, and he came back to the bus with my favorite snack, M&Ms, and I like couldn't even see them. I was crying so hard because I just felt this anvil on my chest. Like, how am I ever gonna make money?
Yeah.
And so I told that particular moment. So it's like, where can you just like go back to that email, because it's great that you have it because you have that list. Then take one of those and go, where can I distill that down to the moment? Like, where were you? What time was it? What was going on?
But how do you balance it like with like, I mean, I've had suicide attempts that are just that I'm okay talking about, but I know are too triggering for other people to hear.
Yeah, so I think
and I don't know how to like, you know what I mean, talk about them without triggering people.
Yeah, that's a powerful question. So I also think you have to know your audience. And it's like, you said, you know, if you maybe you want to be in a room where the other women are willing to go there. So maybe that story will be powerful to them. So it's thinking about like, what does your ideal client need to hear from you? Like, what are the things that they need to hear from you to know that you're the choice for them to work with them? You know?
Right.
So for example,
so stop worrying about hurting people's feelings and
get it tattooed on your body. Stop worrying about like, right. So if you like tiptoe in it, or you tell a bunch of stories to like hide one particular thing, right? So it's like, I would say, number one, stop hiding to please. People will unsubscribe. It might be too much for them, but that's who you are. You know, I have a copywriter friend of mine who always says, like, if you're a jerk in real life, like, don't try to hide it. Be a jerk in your writing. Like, hone in on it. Like, use that to bring the people that you want, you know? So for you, if that's important to you and you want to be able to facilitate that kind of truth from people, then don't be afraid to tell it. And then when you're telling it yourself, distill it down and be specific when you talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
It was that night where I thought, like, I'm just, you know, that I didn't, whatever it is, you know? And then you go, well, let me tell you. And maybe you tell a little bit about it and you go, maybe you've been there too. But the important part was when you're telling it is like, you have kind of come out on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Am I saying that?
Yeah, and that's the only way that I've like, and I actually changed my original, because I used to coach networking, and through actually Mark and Jenny's talk, I quickly realized that it was about coaching. And so I sat down one day and was like, okay, so what are the defining moments in my life? Most of them are trauma, and they are things that for the first time in my life, I don't feel like a victim anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So that's the key, right? Is that's how you go to the Eeyore to the Tigers, right? And it's like, you've come out of it. So in Copy Shop 1.0, Mara Glazer, she's like my mentor. She like taught me everything I know. She and I talked about like when people are telling the stories like that, you want to be careful, because it's like, if you've come out on the other side, then you can really kind of talk about it there. So that's why, okay, you're in a great space to be able to then talk about that and then say, maybe you were there too, you know, and you're ready to like really kind of skyrocket out of, you know, come out of it. And that's like what we work on together, or like whatever it is.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you definitely got to own your own like sass and just realize that the people who are going to come to you are going to be the right people. You know, like my dad died when I was a baby. So I tend to sometimes kind of make jokes about it. Not jokes, but like it's just kind of how I am. You know, I'll say it to my mom. We always joke with my mom. My mom will always bring up my dad in conversation. Like right now, I don't know, she could be on this email conversation. She'd be like, your dad loved emails. Like, Mom, he died in 1986. There were no emails. So stop saying that, you know? Like, but my friends will joke with her. My friends will be like, Rita, do you think Tony would have like loved this pen? Like that's just how we are, you know? So I was at a party one night where I was saying this, and this girl was there, and she was like totally like offended. And I just remember being like let go and let God. Like I understood that like she just wasn't my people there. Like that was okay. Like that was all right. That's totally fine. You know what I mean? And I like bless her and wish her well in her experience. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
You're a woman of integrity. You're going to treat people with care, and you're going to, you know, have your bold point of view at the same time. So best of luck with everything. It sounds so exciting.
Thank you.
On all of it. These are such great questions. Talita, you said you had a question back at the top. What was it? Unmute yourself, girlfriend.
It was about our voice, what we were talking about, and I'm wanting, like, that's all clear, but I'm wanting to know, when then is it that I use my dream client's language versus my language?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think it comes with practice, and then you're going to also kind of definitely when you flip it around to them. So remember when I was reading like the florist email, and I was like, then I flipped it and I go, are your website booking sales calls? Does your website feel like that? I'm using their language there of what I know people have said to me about websites. So it's like, maybe you tell your top part and then you're flipping it around to what they've said. Gotcha. So maybe like for you, because I know Talita's business, like you're talking about like running your best race or something, and like what happened to you, and then you flip it around and you're like, you know, maybe you've been there too, and you started training and everyone told you that you had to, and now you're going to insert the things that you've heard them say, like in your market research and all that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
And even sometimes within your own experience, there may be a place to like take some creative license and maybe sub in something that someone said that maybe like kind of fits a little bit. You know what I mean? But really when you switch to that 60% part where you're really talking to them, that's where you can bring all that in.
Gotcha. I think I got it. Cause when that question came up, you were talking about not sounding like everyone else, like what is my personality? What are the words I use? What's in my word closet? All of that.
Yep.
And that's when that question came up, because it's almost probably the exact opposite of my clients.
Yeah, and that's okay, because they're also like drawn to you. Like I was actually saying like all of my ladies in the Copy Confidence Society are so different from me. And my coach was like, they're like, you know, they're attracted to like that spunk in you. Like they love it. Like they want to find whatever that is for themselves. And I was like, yeah, you're so right. You know what I mean? So there are going to be things in you that your people are going to love about you. And when you're speaking back to them, then you kind of can include their language there. So it becomes like this marriage of like Talita meets the
Gotcha.
woman who's like, you know, race. She's, you know, best race of your life without wrecking your body, like crush your next PR. Did I say crush your next PR?
Oh, nail, but
Nail? Okay.
I'm still, and that's one of the words that I'm working with, because I don't use that word. I don't like, but I've heard people.
Yeah. So it becomes like a little bit of a marriage that you just kind of have to practice a little bit. It's a good question. Anything else? You guys have asked such great questions. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Awesome.
Thank you for doing all of this.
Yeah, this was really great. I mean, I could talk about emails forever. I could talk about anything forever, really. But thank you again so much for being part of the Copy Chat. I absolutely loved having you here. Just another message popped up. I wanted to make sure. Oh, thank you. Thank you guys for being here. So as you know, you have lifetime access to the interviews. Those are yours to go back and listen to whenever you're working on stuff. I have the workbook in there for you. You have this call to listen to also forever and ever. And then know that the Copy Chat Facebook group, like that's your community. So come in there starting back on August 5th when I get back from vacation. I'm going to be doing, going back to my lives in there Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to be doing 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. So if you can't always make it live, no, you can always listen to the replays. And that's what's going on in there. And feel free to always come in there and ask me questions. And there's lots of stuff coming down the pipe. And I'm happy to help you any way I can. So don't hesitate to reach out. Ren says, can you send an email to us or put it in the group for all the ways we can work with you? Sure. So if you want to talk to me about that, the best thing, Ren, would be to send me a quick email right now so that I know in my brain, and then I can send that to you. But just kind of as if you know that that's something you want to do, send me an email now so that I can make sure to respond to you. But in general, I work with people in 2 ways. So I either work with people in a done for you capacity where I come in and put my word wizardry to create high converting copy that is going to get you 60 to 80% conversion on your website. That's going to help you fill that program like Alyssa was talking about, that's going to help you fill that one-to-one roster. And then the other thing I do is I teach you how to be the content creator for your business and all the copy that goes along with it, because there's nothing better you could do for your business than figure out everything that we talked about tonight. And so we do that through the Copy Confidence Society or in the Write Your Website workshop. And the Copy Confidence Society, we start September 23rd. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can definitely email me. I'm happy to talk to you about that. And then the Write Your Website workshop, I'll probably do another round of that in the later part of the fall, I think, but I'm not sure yet. But Copy Confidence starts September 23rd. So you can email me about that. I'm happy to talk with you about it. Is there any way to bookmark the Copy Chat live pop-ups in the group? I don't know. It's a great question. I'm not sure. But they're always there under video. If you go to video, you can if you just go to video, you can just kind of see everything. If you see my face or you see one of the experts, then you know. So thank you so much for being here, you guys. Hosanna will make sure that this is added to your kit and let you know that there was the recording so you have easy access to it. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I will see you guys in the group. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Good night. Bye.